Hello everyone, welcome to the Native Level channel. Okay, let's look at some news today. On Sky News Australia, there is a story. China is on the march with a failing economy, making it more aggressive. Bishop. I don't know who Bishop is, and of course, I'm not trying to say anything negative about China, and I'm not saying that out of fear either. I don't much care for the CCP, but I'm talking about the people of China. I respect the people of China. The government, I understand, has picked a lot of fights with a lot of nations, and they're getting their just desserts. But that's how the narrative is looking so far. Let's look at what this story is about. Here we go.
Talk about China, as always, with your good self, Bronwyn. Now, we learned today that apparently China is trying to reach.
What is this statement? Paul Murray, live. Apparently, our lollies are racist now. Does he mean lollies like ice lollies? Well, maybe the Black Lives Matter movement has taken issue with something in Australia in the confectionery market. Let me know what you think.
Out for non-English speaking journalists and trying to use them as a way of trying to influence the types of stories that travel around the world. We saw a consequence of their reach out across the world at the UN this week, where the Human Rights Commission, they were able to get the Human Rights Commission to say national interest is more important than human rights. So surprise, surprise, you throw a few dollars here, a few dollars there, guess what ends up happening? It all folds your way.
Well, China is on the march.
Okay. It sounds like he's talking about people, governors in high places, of course, in Australia or in various countries taking money from China to keep quiet about certain issues, whilst glaring issues are becoming more and more apparent to the masses. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you think? Let's listen to what this lady has to say.
Was there, guess what ends up happening? It all folds your way.
Well, China is on the march. China is aggressive. And I don't claim to be the world's greatest expert, but I have studied socialism and I know what happens. And I know that socialist economies always fail. China's economy is failing, which makes her more aggressive still.
Did you say her? Sometimes the term her or feminine identifiers are given to vessels that hold life. Ships, airplanes, cars, and yes, in this case, a country, so it seems. China, a socialist country, that sounds very interesting. For those of you who don't know, there was a famous Democratic politician running for the left called Bernie Sanders who declared himself to be a socialist. Now I understand why he was why he was repelled so often. The word socialism being attached to communism sounds like a way to lose an American election. But let's keep it going.
Now, we've got an opportunity here. We're being attacked by China because we are not behaving like the vassal state that they want us to be. And a vassal state means very simply that they want to have our minerals, they want to have our food, and they want us to kowtow, they want us to prostrate ourselves to them, and that they will rule our lives. Well,
Ooh, that's the narrative of China, is it? So, socialism, communism. It's funny, it should serve the community, it should serve the society, socialism, but somehow it doesn't. There's something about choice, as they said in The Matrix Reloaded. The problem is choice. You give people even the illusion of choice, and they'll be happy with you. But when you make people feel that you're going to do what I say, eventually you will have pushback. That's what it looks like is going on. What do you think?
no. This is a wonderful country and we've got to stand up for ourselves. And we have to make sure that we become less dependent on China, the way we have become in trade.
Yep.
And you know what the sad thing is that's going on? Many people are taking up with this anti-China rhetoric. And I'd rather it not be that way. Like David Icke was saying, we aren't really separate. It doesn't matter what country you come from, what experience you've had. We're all just expressions of consciousness. So I feel people should keep focusing on CCP, the Communist Party, and distinguish that from China, that actually had a proper culture before communism took a hold, which is attempting to take hold of the world. But what do you think? Do you think people should keep saying anti-China, or do you think people should say anti-CCP more? Or nothing? What do you think? Let me know.
Which means in turn we have to start making things here again. People will say the easiest things, perhaps we should be making some drugs here, perhaps we should be making protective clothing and so on. But to do that, Paul, we have to have fundamental reforms of the way our economy is functioning.
Okay. Now here's a problem. People are talking about reform all around the world. And these news shows are very odd. Sometimes they seem to represent serving people, giving people the best, giving people something that they can use to feel encouraged and enthused to go through society with, to go throughout their day with. But sometimes they usher in another agenda. Reform, yes, but reform of the economy. Sometimes these terms bring with them agendas on the back of them. So economic reform, there's nothing wrong with saying that. Of course we need countries can do with economic reform, but many people are slipping, like in America with the rioting. I'm not going to call these people protesters who are wreaking havoc on the nation, but a lot of them are looking to tear down what's there and start again, to the excessive extent that they, of course, are trying to tear down statues, eradicate the police, and then start again. It's very odd in that they are prepared to let people suffer whilst these regimes are in effect. So I think when you talk about things like reform of the economy, and the reason I brought in the Black Lives Matter tie-in is because it would look like what would come next with all what they want to tear down to build something new with is also a new approach to, they would like to bring a new system for, a new economic system to America and hopefully the world, I suppose. But it's not that the economy doesn't need reform, that's what I'm saying. It's that if you're going to make these terms like reform of the economic structure and all that, be very clear as to what you mean. And I know we only have a few minutes on this man's show, but please be as specific as possible as to make sure you're coupling things together that aren't necessarily of people's best interest. For instance, many people are conflating the protesters with the rioters or the anarchists, and they are separate individuals. At the same time, some protesters who are there, who are out on the streets protesting, serve as human shields for rioters, and thus by being there they facilitate the disharmony. So again, if you're going to distinguish yourself from, or distinguish what you're talking about from another point that isn't necessarily what you intend to convey, distinguish yourself with action, not just words. Do so in deed, but not just with words. All right, let's conclude.
And how we power things.
Absolutely. The point I'm going to make immediately. It is no point in saying that we want to bring this back here if we don't say we'll give them one thing that gives us a competitive advantage: cheap power.
Correct.
And we get cheap power from our coal. They know it's cheap. They import our coal. They make those goddamn turbines for windmills that they make in China and send back to here that we eventually have to get rid of. We have to get out of Paris. We have to get out of those submarines so we've got ability to defend ourselves, something quickly and now.
Yep.
We've got to take a big red pencil to all the waste that we're spending on. We have got to take the opportunity not to talk about it anymore, but start doing it.
Get on the game. Get on it.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, she just very much mentioned what I was talking about. Be very specific as of what you're talking about. So she gave us many examples. I didn't know that Australian coal is very valuable in China. Cheap power, yeah, that's a very very apt way to summarize what people value from getting from China, and yet China want the same thing from other countries, and of course this extends to the CCP. So I'm going to make sure I'm clear myself. CCP seems to want resources from other countries in a way that profits them, but doesn't profits themselves, but doesn't profit the countries they are getting the resources from, in exchange for cheap labor. It's ironic. So they take things from other countries, well, fine, they purchase them, and they turn it into something else through cheap labor on their end, and they give it back to countries who say thank you, of course. So we, it's very good that she's very clear about action. Action is very much important right now, and of course, it's what's happening. I'm very enthused by the action people have taken to claim back their self-worth in the midst of this attempt to take over the world through so many sinister agendas, including COVID-19 and this Black Lives Matter movement as of late. But what do you think of all this, everyone? Thank you for watching. See you next time.